Yeah. Hola.
Welcome back. Another episode. Here we are.
Yeah.
Boy, we're going to talk about safety today.
Yeah, it's a timely topic. Yeah, safety equipment, safety on the trail. I want to preface all this by saying that I don't believe there's any point in shaming anybody. Accidents happen, mistakes get made. We're all human beings. And, if we refer to any specific examples, it's not intended to...
It's just as an example.
Put that person in a bad light. These are learning opportunities. So, some of you may know that one of my side gigs is as a defensive tactics instructor, and I've instructed a lot of law enforcement and military and others over the years. And, once upon a time, in terms of law enforcement, it used to be very taboo, considered very bad form to discuss in the aftermath of an officer-involved shooting, right, or a fatality, killed in the line of duty, right? Nobody would talk about it, right? And so it wasn't an opportunity to learn. And it's because, they didn't want to put that officer in a bad light. But, now we know better, and, there's a lot you can learn from going through those things. And again, everybody's human, so it helps sometimes to have an example to refer to, like this one we have here, which was very recent out in Sand Hollow, on You Gotta Be Nuts. And you can't always tell from looking at the videos, but that's a serious obstacle. It's not difficult, but as somebody pointed out, maybe it was Ari Wheels, the consequences, right, of failure can be pretty catastrophic. And I think that really goes for a lot of hard, difficult to extreme wheeling, right? You have to do kind of a risk assessment, right? We've kind of talked about this before. If you're watching a YouTube video and you see a rig that's built like yours, similar, or maybe not as built as yours, right? The first thing I think of, right, is oh shit, if he can do that, I can do that, right? I'm looking at, because if I'm on the fence about a trail's level of difficulty or an obstacle level of difficulty, and I see a rig like mine completed, that's the go light for me, right? Challenge accepted. That's all I need to know. No more sitting on the fence. So, but you also have to consider, do you have the right safety gear for that? What if, right? So just because 100 stock JKUs make it through something doesn't mean I'm not going to be the one.
Well, I think that's the thing, right? Like that, you bring up a good point. The other thing you got to consider is the driver,
right?
Because you can put a extremely good driver that's been doing it for years and years, and something stock or stockish, right? So my example is Kevin, right? He took his YJ up it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I saw it, and I'm like, all right, now I got to do it. I haven't done it. I have not done You Got to Be Nuts, because it scares the shit out of me, honestly, just looking at it. But now Kevin did it in the YJ, and I'm like, I got to do it. I was going off yours. If he could do it, I could do it. But, that's experienced driver.
Yeah, and a lot of these things, it's like I said, they're not difficult. It's just high penalty for failure. If you're going up the crack on the Fallen, and
you slip in,
your passenger side slips off that wall, and it's gonna do some damage, right? So, well, let's get into it.
All right. We want to talk a little bit. What safety things do we want to talk about?
Well, certainly cages,
Okay.
right? The Wranglers are very popular, right? And that sport cage, as they call it, I think it's just there to hold the roof on, right? At least on the JKs and JKUs, it's very. I don't know what it was like. I think on the TJ it's a little heavier.
TJ
wall.
was a little bit thicker,
Yeah.
a little bit sturdier, but
Yeah, they're pretty.
when we cut yours off,
Man, they're pretty thin. Like and this is
LJ, I think,
a
right?
JL,
Or
and
JL.
so yeah,
That's not
that
a
windshield
JL.
frame is not going to do much for you in a rollover like this. And this wasn't, high speed. It was, at the time that it actually flopped, it wasn't that high up. It didn't roll multiple times. It came up on its top. And that's the damage that was done. And luckily, no injuries. And, to this young man's credit, this was posted and by him on his Instagram. And, it's a testament to him. I'm glad he's okay. And he's definitely wiser for it. But by him posting it, we can all be wiser
And learn, yeah.
for it, and you see a lot of stock or nearly stock vehicles out on these trails, for especially for these events. And I don't know if people really stop to consider how much protection they get out of the cage that comes factory in these Jeeps. And the answer is not much.
Clearly. Right? So I think let's just start from the beginning, right? Right? You got to be wearing your seatbelt, right?
Yeah, anything that, if you're climbing, I mean, you probably should be wearing it anyway, but it depends. If I'm on the flat and I'm having to get in and out of the rig a lot, for example, for leading trails, I'm not harnessing up.
Not even your lap.
No, not if I'm going
Oh boy.
flat down the bottom of an arroyo, and I'm getting out every 20 yards. It's a lot of extra work. But if I'm climbing on something or going through a crack or whatever, I'm definitely going to at least put the lap belt on. And if it's a gnarly climb, I'm going to put the full harness on.
Well, I recommend you do it every time just so it builds a good habit.
Yeah, what he said.
I've always worn my lap belt. I never used to wear the shoulder harnesses, ever. Like I've never worn them until I got my new ones. And I just, because you said something that clicked that, one, how am I going to do anything without being used to wearing them? Right? If I never wore them and then I had to put them on for something sketchy, I'm not used to how I move in them. I'm not sure if they're tightened down correctly, everything like that. So now when I get in my Jeep, everything goes on, even if we're going 20 yards. I just do it.
Well, I can't argue with that. It's a good policy.
It's just
And, the point I made, I think at the time, was that the more you do it, the easier it gets.
yeah, I think that
Right?
was it.
It's a little awkward and a little bit of a hassle, but if you do it continuously, it becomes a habit and a piece of cake. You've done it so many times that bing, bang, boom, snaps together and off you go.
Does. All right, so back to cages. Where it's very hard to pinpoint, right? Like this is an obvious example of it's time for a cage, right? But is there a way to help someone think about maybe when that time should come before they get into this situation?
I think,
Big investment,
it can be.
but it's not a big investment versus your life. right?
Correct. Yeah. And like I said, you can climb all through these trails, right? This is on the maze, and there's a lot of significant obstacles on the maze, and most of them have bypasses, I think, but I don't know if all of them do.
Even some of the bypasses
Right.
are sketchy, though.
And
That bypass is not great.
yeah, I mean, even the bypass on this one, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you could. The same thing could have happened on the bypass. So that's a great point. So I think if you're doing anything where you're getting your significantly off camber, if you're doing trails like that, usually trails that are way off camber will have a higher rating. They should. Moderate off camber, you're going to get that everywhere. But if it's so off camber that you're getting light on one side, then it probably would have a higher rating. But certainly if you're climbing.
Shoot would be.
Yeah.
Shouldn't do a shoot probably without a cage.
No, but you see vehicles do it all day, every day. And again, right, it's not a problem until it's a problem. And, you could go up there 100 times and 99 of them could be a piece of cake, and, So that's it, right? It's not that it's, when you do a risk assessment, right, in other areas, it's not just about the likelihood, right? Something could be extremely improbable, but the consequence of it happening is catastrophic, right? So even though it's a low probability, because it's so bad if it happens, right, it has a higher risk assessment. As opposed to something that is likely to happen all the time, but isn't that serious.
I don't think we know much about this, but what about starting with the add-in pieces to cages, like the rock hard?
I did that. That's the first one I did.
Yeah. We don't really know the structural safety of it, but definitely makes you feel better about things, right?
Yeah. Well,
And in theory, I mean, you're bracing.
Well, yeah. I mean,
different places.
If you look at this, okay, so that one had a piece of DOM that ran along the top of that windshield. And I'm trying to remember if it tied in
On yours.
at the A pillar. It had a bar across the dashboard. So yeah.
On yours, right?
Yeah. So and
it clamped on both sides.
And you can get it piecemeal.
And the bottom.
Yeah.
And then you had the one that went across.
It did have an A pillar piece. But yeah, it clamps on the sport cage. But to have DOM standing up on both of those A pillars and across the top, right, braced with one across the dashboard, right, that would look a lot different, right? That windshield frame wouldn't be pancaked.
And that's an economical
compared to a full
cage,
welding
right?
cage. Yeah,
and you can do it in a garage.
You can do it in the garage. You can do a DIYer can do it, no problem. And they also make a standalone harness bar.
Yeah, yeah.
That you can get without getting like the full meal deal. You can still put a harness bar in. So if you did nothing else other than, get that windshield frame reinforced with DOM and a harness bar and get a good harness, you're way ahead of the game. Yeah. And then you had a partial in the TJ for a while.
I had the Poison Spider sport cage in mine, which was all bolted in. Right, except for...
Yeah, one part was welded in.
I think the front window was welded in.
Yeah, the one across the top at the front.
Across the dash.
Yeah.
I think that one got welded in.
But the rock hard, there's no welding required.
Yeah.
And it's, you can say whatever you want. Yes, it bolts together, but, when you look at the...
Buildings are bolted together.
Sure. I mean, a lot of your rig is bolted together. If you come right down to it. There's bolts holding everything. So the thickness of the wall on that DOM versus, the sport cage that came in my rig, I mean, it's like a bunch of beer cans strung together end to end. It's thin.
Yeah, it's too bad we don't have a piece of that still.
Yeah.
Just to show. It's
yeah. And again, like I said, I was kind of joking, but in that particular Wrangler, I think it is to hold those freedom panels on. It doesn't, it's not going to keep your person from getting squished.
Yeah.
If you roll over. And, there was another recent rollover, not to speak ill of the departed, man, but, we lost a couple a few weeks ago. And they had a cage, but that was also, on the highway and no seatbelts.
Yeah.
So double fatality.
They put seatbelts in vehicles for a reason.
Yeah. So, that's the other thing. And I don't know the answer to this. You can probably find some data on it. There are a couple of notable manufacturers of weld-in cages. They make good stuff. And there might be some data on it. You're doing it for the trail, right? Not because you're going to get into a high-speed barrel roll.
Yeah.
Cage can only help in that situation, but if you barrel roll like that and you're not strapped in, it's going to be problematic. And you'll see if you've seen this video or if you find it and watch it, that young man, as soon as the top hits, he's out of the, he rolls right out of the Jeep because he's also not strapped in. So, lessons learned, and it's definitely something that if you're going to be doing difficult trails, moderate to difficult, that if your front end's coming up, the height of your hood, anything can happen. You can back off into it happened to me on a climb the last time we were out. I came off of a big wall, backed off to try to get a new line, and fell in a hole, and man, that thing just about went.
Yeah. I don't even know what happened. I was in the Jeep. We were tow point, and
I'll tell you what
I
happened.
looked in the mirror, and your Jeep was going like this.
Yeah, I was dotting cotton.
All right, so there's different brands out there. We think it's pretty important, and I think everybody would agree that if you're going to continue to do this, a cage is one of the vital things that you need. Some form of cage, whether it's sport, bolt-in, full cages, and even you can get even crazier, full cages that are directly tied into the frame, right, and doing things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's got to be, if you're going to continue to do this sport.
Yeah, if you're getting beyond the 3s and 4s, you're getting into the 5s, 6s, and 7s, you should probably seriously consider it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a full weld-on deal, right? Weld-in. In fact, at least with Genrite, they'll weld it up. They have a jig. They'll sell it to you fully welded.
Yeah.
There's still some work. I think putting all those plates in to attach to is more work than building the cage itself. But so there's always a way to get it done. You can go to a fab shop and just say, hey man, bend me some tube to put a little frame around this.
Yeah.
What about, it's obviously harnesses, right? We got to talk about, you got to be strapped in too.
Got to be strapped in. I mean, there's a ton of different harnesses out there. There's an easy way. Rock Hard makes that bar, like you said. So there's an easy way to get harnesses.
Yeah, and harnesses are relatively inexpensive. If you haven't looked at them, you may not know that, but they're I'm not going to break the bank buying harnesses.
And they make all kinds of harnesses. Well, that's a sign, isn't it?
Yes, they do.
Right? They make where they work like a seatbelt. They click in like a seatbelt, release like a seatbelt.
Mm-hmm.
They make where all the points come to a thing, and you got to click in each point. I don't know what those are called. They make the buckle kind where you slide 2 pieces over and ratchet it down, kind of. They make yours that are sewn together. The harnesses are sewn together on the lap belt, and then you just click it down.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a harness for everyone out there, really.
Different widths, custom colors.
2-inch, 3-inch, every color you could think of. Patterns. Not having something is...
But even the stock seatbelt should prevent you from falling out.
Well, yeah, I don't think you could fall out of a stock seatbelt, really.
Not all the way out.
You should wear your cross...
Mm-hmm. Shoulder
strap, right? Like, that's important too. Not just pulling it over your seat. And I know a lot of people do it, right? And part of it, I admit I didn't wear my harnesses because I'm used to looking out and not being able to see. But again, that's why I started doing it. So I'd quit doing that too.
Well, and the harnesses too. A lot of them have. You can adjust them kind of on the fly, right?
Yeah.
So if you're strapped in and you need a little more freedom of movement, you can, just
mine are
loosen
loose
them up a little bit.
And if I
really
getting on something, I just pull them down and I'm in.
And a 4-point harness is plenty good. You don't need a 5-point harness, right? That 5th point is to keep you from sliding forward if you're not racing or.
Yeah, I don't.
I
don't think we need that, but if someone knows really about harnesses.
If you can't reach the floorboard,
seriously,
like
to reach.
Like if I had a smaller person, a kid in there, that 5th point
where their feet weren't
because they'll just
dangling,
slide right out like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Helmets. If you've ever smacked your head on your roll cage, you probably thought about helmets. I have. I don't own one. I've been procrastinating. They got an uptick in popularity there for a little while with the flex rocks and rollover stuff. But it kind of I was seeing them more and more on trails, and now I'm seeing them less. If you're competing like We Rock or something, you've got to wear it. It's not optional. And there's a reason for that. So here again, don't do as I say, not as I do, right? You own one.
Yeah, I purchased one. I haven't used it yet.
And I've threatened to go down to the skate shop and buy one. I've been threatening to do it for over a year now, maybe 2. But I have recently cracked the side of my head. You get jolted, you fall off a rock or something, and it bounces you.
Well, yeah, I think that's the other important thing with these aftermarket cages. There's no padding on them. Now, you can get padding. I've seen some good padding that you can put on it, but it's never going to make the bends right. You're going to have some spaces where it's not.
That padding that came in mind, that's not... It's like paper, man. It's not going to...
It's still better than...
Not really. I don't
Yes,
think
it
so.
is.
I think if you're wearing a ball cap, you have more padding than that stuff's going to give you.
Foam and cloth. No. It helps.
Help sell Jeeves.
All right. What else you got over there?
How about a winch as safety gear? Having your recovery stuff, your rigging, soft shackles, strap, all that stuff. I would argue that In certain wheeling conditions, wheeling without that stuff is a risk. It's a safety hazard. If you're on some mountain road, right, some forest road, and there's some caliche and it's wet, and your rig starts sliding off, you might want to be able to tie it off to something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important if you're wheeling alone, even forest roads or whatever. I think that's very important. Yeah, I mean, I think they're important.
Okay.
I mean, I don't.
Dang,
I mean, we've talked a little bit about it.
I was looking for an argument.
No,
Shit.
we've talked about it in past episodes where people show up without their winches working and things like that. And I think that's the difference. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I guess is when you're in a bigger group with a working winch is great because nobody has to go turn around and winch you up with their winch. But when you're with a group, everybody has, or some people have enough soft shackles and hard shackles, whatever. That's what I mean. I guess it's in a big group. It's not quite. Someone has something, a tow rope, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like we do. I mean, we carry 500 pounds worth of crap.
And we also know people that don't carry shit.
Because we carry it for them is what they've told us. You're welcome.
First aid kit.
Oh, those are probably the most important thing that you can carry more than anything. But my problem with first aid kits is if you get a good one, I don't have any training to use the important things out of it if it came to it. So I have to hope that someone with me knows what the fuck they're doing because I don't.
All you need is a roll of duct tape. And some gauze. No, it's a good point, but it's also one of the reasons anytime, when we're starting a trail and we're having a driver meeting, if it's our trail, I always ask who's trained. It's just like when I'm teaching a class on the range, on the shooting range. You want to know if somebody's a paramedic, EMT, right? Or a Red Cross EMR or, whatever, even if they took a CPR class at work or what, it's always good to know if you can identify the person with the most training and make them the point person. If somebody gets seriously injured, I have stuff that, man, hopefully is never going to come out, right? Everything from tourniquets, occlusive bandage, splints, coagulant, all that shit. But hopefully it's just somebody needs an Advil, a Band-Aid, some Benadryl, and you should have a boo-boo kit. But it's always good if somebody in the group has something that can do a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just in case. I mean, shit, you're out on rocks.
Just even not being in the Jeep, just walking around, checking things out.
I took a bad fall in Las Cruces.
I'm talking about while we're out in the trail.
Yes.
Oh.
Remember?
Yeah.
It was early morning, sun's in my eyes. There was some dust, some fine dust on a slick rock, and I stepped on that thing and down I went. It's pretty nasty. So it happens, and we had some gauze, we had some tape. Finished the trail, got paid.
Got paid. That's funny.
All right, what else? Fire extinguisher.
I think those are important, right? Make sure it's charged. They make easy little clamp things to go on. At Chili Challenge, there's a guy that's out there selling them, which is great. And the little mount, so I definitely recommend you have that one. It may save your Jeep from burning down, right?
Yeah.
It really could stop a bad problem pretty easily.
Yeah, because you got a lot of hot surfaces, a lot of fluids, transmission fluid, brake fluid, power steering fluid,
It's all flammable.
red hot exhaust, even so, yeah, you get a fire under that belly skid, and it's not like you're going to take that thing off in a jiffy, especially
Right.
when it's hot and on fire.
Yeah, but if it could be sprayed down, it might save your Jeep.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important.
And some of the things that, maybe most people think of it, pretty much everybody does, but out here where we are in the Southwest, water and sunscreen, you should always have a plan for being out there for a while.
Yeah. I think the other thing is good communication. Right? Like if you don't
Are you
know,
going to get upset about the radios again?
kind of. No. Right? Remember when we were out? I don't know where we were, but I got stung by something.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like if that happens to you, like I stopped. I was in the back. I went up to Scott and said, "Hey, I just got stung by something. I don't know what it was. I think I'm okay, but I will get on the radio and let you know if I start freaking out." Right? Like just be aware of your surroundings, and if something happens, you let someone know. Just because at least then you would have had an idea of, get to me, hopefully get me to something and say, this is what he said before he went out. Right? Because if you don't know, I don't know. I don't know what those doctors do if they don't have a starting point.
Well, if we're forgetting anything, which undoubtedly we are, leave a comment. Let us know what else can people do to prepare and be as safe as possible out there on the trail.
Yeah. You know what? Let's try this. Let's try one more thing on this. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this.
All right.
Right? Let's really just talk about it. You know what really grinds my gears about this? Yeah. It's the amount of views and likes and interaction that social media gives to this. And not just this, but any flop. Right? It really kind of grinds my gears. Let me tell you, someone makes a clean climb, nobody gives a shit about it. Right? But you fuck up and everybody's in on it.
Yep.
Get comments, crazy comments.
Reminds me of a joke that I can't repeat. I'll tell you another thing that's interesting, though. And look, again, I'm not judging. There's no shame. I mean, this is the world we live in. If you watch this video, there are two guys back there with their phones out, and they're recording it, and they're like, it's not even a reaction. All of this goes down, and, they're not like dropping their phones and, I mean, everybody, came together and helped, but I think people are so conditioned that they can calmly watch something like this.
I
unfold.
told you, that's my whole goal. Unless I don't know what I would have done if that would have happened to you. But my whole goal is not to stop filming. I've told you that.
Oh, that's good.
And the only time I stopped is when I thought you might actually die.
That's good. Well, we'll have a good video at my funeral, is what he's trying to tell you.
It will be good. It won't be shaky or anything. But anyways, yeah. So, man, they got a lot of interactions from Crawlin' TJ, Jeeple, What the Kelsey Heck, Jeep Jedi, Crazy K's.
They, the original one he posted is 20,000 views. So
20,000 views.
I mean, come on, man. Everybody has morbid curiosity. It's human nature.
Man,
I don't know why you're upset about it.
you do it right and no one cares.
All right, so if you're reading between the lines, there's a cry for help there. Please go look at Jason's videos. Give him a like, make him feel loved.
Oh, man.
All the, uneventful, non-dramatic stuff he's doing.
Yeah, sometimes it's dramatic. Guess who stops filming when I get in dramatic situations?
Yeah, I freak out.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a good end. Thank you, everybody. Leave us some comments. We appreciate those.
Yeah.
some more topics. We like exploring topics. If you'd like us to see something else from us, let us know.
And we'll see you out on the trails.
All right.